Some of the early signs of giftedness may include a very well-developed vocabulary, learning to read before they're taught, increased energy level, decreased need for sleep. You may have a child who is like a little adult or like a little attorney. Some other characteristics that go with being gifted is being exceptionally sensitive, perfectionistic. Gifted children often have what's called asynchronous development. That means they may be intellectually very advanced, but emotionally and socially they may be behind their age peers. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of these different issues and signs of perfectionism, of overexcitability, of excessive sensitivity, and we're going to talk about what that might look like in a gifted child, how that can mask their true giftedness and prevent them from being properly identified, and we're going to talk about what we can do to help them overcome some of these hang-ups. Often children who are gifted are overexcitable in any of the following 5 domains. They may be overexcitable in the psychomotor domain, so as they get more charged up and excited, they have an increased need for movement. These children also may exhibit very rapid speech and extremely abundant physical energy, and this can often be misdiagnosed as ADHD. Then there's the sensual realm. Some children their experience of what they see or what they smell, what they hear, what they feel, it's a lot bigger, it's a lot more exciting, it can be overwhelming for them. They perceive in a way that is much grander than an ordinary person. And they often also don't realize that other people don't have the same kind of perceptual and sensory experience. So when they have an overexcitability in the sensual realm, they will sometimes get over-aroused and overwhelmed, but at the same time they'll have a hunger for that, and they'll often seek out things that they can absorb their vision with or absorb their hearing, or they may have something that they really like to touch and they bring around with them all the time to help them soothe themselves. Next, we have the intellectual area of overexcitability. These children are children who are just hungering for more information all the time. They're constantly wanting to know everything about everything. They may get really absorbed in a topic and want to know everything about it, and they'll be telling you all about it, starting from a very early age. So children may have an overexcitability in one or any combination or all of these different realms. The next one is imaginational. These children may be a little more withdrawn. They may not be so obvious as being gifted, but they'll have a very rich imaginary life. They may have 15 or more stuffed animals in their bed that they have a whole story about, and each one of them has a personality, and they may at times be more absorbed with interacting with the fantasy world they've created in their head than with what's really out there, and these children often get misdiagnosed as being ADD without the hyperactivity. Then we have children who have emotional overexcitability. These children have very intense feelings, and they often have they're very intensely tuned into the feelings of others. So this would be the kid who finds out there's a problem with world hunger and then immediately wants to take action and do something. They want your family to start saving money to send to Africa or Ethiopia. They want to break their piggy bank open and give it all away. They cry when they see people other cry. They're intensely sensitive and empathic to the feelings of others, to the point where they have a hard time screening it out. So these are children for whom we want to be really careful about their media exposure. We don't want to necessarily let them see the news because they may be overwhelmed, and because they're very gifted, they may also not understand that other people don't think and perceive the way they do, and so they're also prone to becoming very depressed or very alarmed or very angry because they'll see that other adults also are not responding to global issues like hunger. So the children that are emotionally overly excitable are going to need a teacher who is very sensitive to their intensity. They're going to need help with learning how to regulate their feelings, and you may need to take special care to sort of screen out some of the influences from the environment, especially what comes in through the media. I know that when I was in my 20s, I enjoyed reading the newspaper every morning, but I had to quit reading it because I found that if I read the newspaper every morning, I was starting to develop a really depressed and apocalyptic worldview. And I still don't tune into the news all the time because the negative focus of the media becomes overwhelming. Children who are truly gifted often have difficulties with socialization or emotional issues. They find it difficult to fit in with other peers because the other kids can't understand what they're thinking about. They can't understand their sarcastic or sharp sense of humor. They just have difficulty relating to others their age. They may seek out adults because adults can get them, but they often always feel like there's a block between them and others. And if you don't correctly explain to them why they're experiencing this block, if they don't understand their own giftedness relative to most other people, then these children are most likely going to start assuming that there's something wrong or something defective with them. They're always going to be wondering, why can't other people connect with me? Why can't they get me? They also often have what's called asynchronous development. That means that they may be very developed in some areas, but in other areas, like maybe socially, they're very underdeveloped. They're immature for their age. And this can really trick a lot of their teachers because their teachers are going to think, well, they're so smart. If they don't know how to act or if they don't make good choices socially, then it must be making bad choices, or it's a moral or a disciplinary issue. Children who are gifted are more prone to having anxiety. One of the functions of elevated IQ is the smarter you are, the more you're able to predict the future and worry about things that might go wrong. So kids that are gifted often have intense concerns about things like death, sex, the future. They may have an adult level of prediction and comprehension, and yet have the emotional level and wisdom of a child. So they're going to need help dealing with these issues. They may be prone to getting really stuck on one issue. They may get hung up on something and stay that way for weeks or months, such as worrying about death or worrying that a parent is going to die. Often children who are gifted also lag behind in their physical development. So their motor skills may lag behind their mind's ability to grasp what they can do, and then they quickly get very frustrated and upset because they can't make their hands build something the way they can see it in their mind. These children, because they stick out and look a little different from others, they may be physically awkward, they may have trouble playing sports, then they're going to be more prone to being bullied. And kids who are gifted also tend to have a heightened sense of injustice. So if they go to play foursquare with the other kids and the other kids know that they're emotionally excitable and maybe not real coordinated, they'll quickly serve the ball to them and make them miss and then pick on them and make fun of them. And the gifted child will get really hung up on that because, one, they're not going to understand why somebody would even do that. They just won't understand why you would pick on or be mean to somebody else. And so they can get hung up on it and get very upset about it. They can come home crying and insisting that they hate school and that they're never going to go back because one little thing didn't go quite right at recess. I once met a child who was 7 years old, and I was conducting an educational evaluation for an emotional disturbance for him. And one of the things that he was deeply concerned about and asking me about was he had noticed, and he's 7 years old, he had noticed that the inspection sticker on his parents' car had expired. And he knew his parents didn't have very much money. And so he was really worried that they would get pulled over on the way to or from school and that his parents would get a ticket that they wouldn't be able to pay because they were low on money, and then maybe they wouldn't be able to pay their mortgage and they'd get evicted from their home. So this is an example of how a very young child can take on adult concerns because they're so smart. They can figure these things out. So I really like to think of all children as being gifted in some